What's up, everybody? It's your boy Joe, and I'm back for another video on Frost Mage. This might be the final one. We'll see how I'm feeling, but as you can see from the title of this video, we're talking about simulation, pawn, consumables, like your gems, your item enchantments, all of that nonsense. Because I'm sure that is very confusing, especially if you're a new player, or maybe you're just getting into mythic rating or even a heroic rating or mythic pluses, and you're seeing you have these gem slots, or you're seeing that there's these enchantments you can put on your things, but you don't know what can be enchanted or how really to navigate the auction house. So today we're going to talk about how all that works, really. So I'd like to kind of give an intro into what are consumables, why they exist, and their purpose in WoW. So we'll go ahead and I'll pull up some of my food here. So if you can see here, I have these Honey-Glazed Haunches. Don't worry about what it is, but if I eat it, if you spend at least 10 seconds eating, you will become well fed and gain 55 critical strike for an hour. So basically what consumables do, and gems and enchantments, is they basically just up your stats. That's all they do. They don't give you any different abilities. You know, they're really not going to affect too much how your rotation is going to be played. Why do these consumables exist? So if you know in WoW, there's a thing called professions. So you have enchanting, jewel crafting. Here, I think it's right here. Like, these are like your professions, right? So I have inscription right now, like I just put it on. And basically, these consumables give the people who want to invest in these professions, they give them a way to make gold. Because they can't make gold if people don't want to buy their stuff. And their stuff has to be useful, right? So I need this food, these Honey-Glazed Haunches, that are going to give me critical strike, right? Well, someone has to put forth the effort of making it, and then, I will compensate them with gold. So that's kind of how the WoW economy is structured, is it's trying to reward people who put time into professions and rewards them gold, and it like gives me something to use my gold. So that's why all these things are here. I know that's not really necessary to what you need to know, but sometimes I think it's good like understanding like the structure of how the game is made and like why things are like they are. Okay, so first let's go into different categories of what everything does. Actually, you know what? First, I'm going to talk about the add-ons. We're going to talk about Pawn, and we're going to talk about Simulation Craft. These are both necessary tools if you want to push your limit. So first, let's talk about Pawn. Let me go to my interface, and we'll open Pawn here. Oops, sorry about that. So Pawn, what it does is it gives you, it displays what exactly is better for your class. So here, I'll give an example. So I have a bunch of rings that I've collected from playing the game, right? And so let's go ahead and unequip these rings here. We'll put them all somewhere easy where we can see them all. So here I have 4 rings, and I've go ahead and I made my own pawn strings. We'll get into how you do that, so don't worry about it. But as you can see on the smaller part of the box coming up, it has different sort of upgrades, right? Do you see Jebediah Arcane and Jebediah Frost, right, at the top 2? It's saying that for those 2 specs, this is an upgrade, right? So I go ahead and I equip this, right? And so this next ring, it's still saying, hey, Jebediah Arcane, Jebediah Frost, this is an upgrade. You should equip it, so I'll equip it, right? Well, now here I have, things I could replace. And so, my pawn string is telling me, listen, this ring is a 29% upgrade for your Frost, right? So I'll go ahead and equip that. So as you can see, the ring it swapped it out with, there's no upgrade for Frost anymore. This is not better. This ring is not better, to my pawn string, than these 2 rings for the stats that I've made. Right, so this is a good way. So it takes item level out of account, right? It's just looking at your stats. Are the stats better than the stats on the ones you've equipped? What about this next ring? Hey, Jebediah Frost, this is a 6% upgrade for what you have equipped. So, go ahead and equip it. So it looks like we have some complicated issues here where the pawn string isn't really sure how to equip everything. So you kind of have to fool around until you don't see an upgrade. That's how I kind of do it. You know, I'm going to take a gander and say this one is the bad one. Right, and so look, so both of these aren't giving me an upgrade for Frost. Ignore the Frost. Just focus on the things that say Jebediah in front of them. That's my username in the game. And that will, you know, now I know that there's no better ring in my inventory for my class, for my spec. And so that's basically what pawn is. You know, it makes it easy because I'm sure looking at these stats, it's very confusing. So how do you set up a pawn string? What is a pawn string? What am I even saying? Okay, so let's say you've installed pawn. Okay, now we can ignore that for now. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is simulation craft. What is simulation craft? Basically what it does is it simulates your character doing DPS. Okay, and everyone's in the worst spot for this. It simulates everyone doing DPS, and it simulates you doing DPS, and it shows what currently, with everything you have equipped and your abilities, what stats are best, like the weights of the stats. So I know this must be like so confusing, but I'm gonna go ahead and display it here. So make sure you have Pawn downloaded for add-ons, and make sure you have Simulation Craft downloaded. You need to download Simulation Craft as an add-on, and then you'd also want to download the Windows version. So here, I'll slow down. So here, let me open up Simulation Craft for you. So this is the program. Okay. So I know, like, sometimes you're saying, like, oh, there's a wall of text. Don't worry about this. I was simulating something here. Yeah, we'll close this permanently. That's gone. So basically, you can show your stats in two ways. You can bring over your character onto Simulation Craft in two ways. The most easiest and simple way is to simply just go to this import tab, go to your server. So I'm on Thrall. You know, type in your character username and then click import, and it'll go ahead and import your character, right? This is the simple and easy way, but the reason this isn't the best way is sometimes the servers just take a snapshot of your character. So let's say you're like, I have one trinket on and I have this other trinket in my inventory, and I'm going to simulate myself with this one trinket, and then I'm going to simulate myself with the other trinket. Well, this way of importing your character can make it difficult because it depends on what time it pulls this your information out of the server. So the best way to do it is to go to simulate here. Let me close these tabs. I don't believe I can close this one. So I'll do a plus here, and right here, right, I have simulate. Now if you download the Simulation Craft add-on, you can hit enter and you can type /simc. All right, so /simc. Now this will take my character's info like immediately. And there it is. And you see how it's all highlighted? That means I can Control-C, which is copy. And then I can come back to my pawn. My Simulation Craft. Zoom that screen. I can Control-V, which is paste. And it pastes it all right there. And then I'd simply go down here and click Simulate. Now, I don't want to do that right now, but... Well, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that really quick. While that's simulating... I do want to talk about the scaling here. So if you go to Options and Scaling, an important thing you want to do before you start simulating is it says Calculate Scale Factors for. So this is like your pawn string. What stats do you care about? So you're going to do your main stat. So for Frost Mage, I'm Intellect. And then basically the four of the stats, basically whatever spec you're checking: crit, haste, mastery, and versatility. So you want to check all those before you simulate. As you can see, it's scanning my versatility here. So let's let this finish up here. All right, here we go. Now I have simulated my character, and this is what pops up. So let's kind of go through this. But we'll go through the pawn string part quickly because I don't want this video to be too long. We can talk about this later if you guys want to talk about it in the comments. Maybe I can make another video. But it says my DPS currently at the moment, so if you're putting in 2 trinkets, you can look up that way. But what we're concerned about is the pawn string, which is right here, okay? So as you can see, pawn string, Jebediah Frost, class Mage. Now let's talk about these ratings right here. Do you see how I have Intellect is 1.77, crit is 1.48, haste is 1.50, yada yada yada? What that's saying is the one with the highest number is the most important the higher that one goes, the more it's going to do towards your DPS. So almost always your main stat will be the best one, because Blizzard wants item level to be the most important thing, and the one thing item level increases is the amount of your main stat you're going to get. So your intellect, if you're a Frost Mage, is going to be the most important thing. And then after that depends. So for Frost Mage, for example, you're constantly balancing between, are you doing critical or are you doing haste? So for here right now, at my character snapshot, what my character has equipped, it's saying that haste is a tad bit more important for me right now. So I should focus on increasing my haste rather than my crit. So let's talk about how to bring this over. So you want to highlight this whole string, including the parentheses at the end. Control C, go back to WoW. Let's get rid of this. Hit escape, go to interface. Here's your pawn. Click pawn. And go ahead and go to scale, and you can import your scale. And you can Control V, and you import it. And there you go. So that's how you import, and it should, make a new label here. And here's all my stats now. They've brought it over. So whenever I go to here, the Jebediah Frost will pop up if it's an upgrade. And so that's how you do pawn, and that's how you do simulation. And it's a good way to see which stat is the most important. So for Frost Mage, you have to be simulating almost all the time, unfortunately, because your critical and your haste are always interchangeable. And at the moment you're like, what stat do I need currently? You always need intellect, but you get to choose between the two when it comes to getting your consumables, and so you need to pick the one that's higher. So it's gonna be a long video. I'm gonna go into all of the consumables and all the things you need to worry about, and I have my notepad, so let's go through each one and I will describe what they do. So you have your food. What do? You basically sit down and you eat, and a buff comes up. So here I'm gonna start eating my food, and up here is my my current action. And at 10 seconds, I will get a buff. Currently, I have critical food equipped, and so there you go. I have well-fed critical strike increased by 70. And so that's basically the purpose of food, is it increases your your stat. I'll leave this up here for now. If you want to pause the video and write this down, or maybe I'll post it in the description. This is I kind of wrote down, these are all the specific items and what they're called, because I'm sure you don't want to watch this whole video of me discussing what things are. Maybe you're just looking for this, so I'll put this in the description. So that's what you do with food. So I listed what the crit food is called and what the haste food is called, and at the end of the video I'll show you how to operate the auction house. I'll do that at the end, so if you want to wait. So you have a flask, and flasks are very important. And the nice thing about, so I guess I'll go back a little bit. With food, you cannot consume your basic stat in food. Okay, so you can't go to the auction house and you can't say, I want to purchase intellect food, I want to purchase agility food, I want to purchase strength food. That doesn't work. However, if you're in a raid environment, you have a guild, there's a thing called the feast that someone can lay down, which is basically a giant food table that everyone can eat around, and it will buff your main stat. But that's a very specific thing that if you're raiding and stuff. But if we're talking about what you just need for yourself, you can only get, for example, Frost Mage, critical food and haste food. Flasks, on the other hand, are the main stat. So for Frost Mage, you're concerned about intellect, and so the flask for intellect is Flask of Endless Fathoms. And basically what this is you just consume it, and it gives you 238 intellect for an hour. So flasks persists through death. So when you die, your food buff goes away, but when you die and you flask, it does not go away. I mean, to be fair, because flasks are so expensive, so you won't be able to afford it. Potions. Now potions are something that's a little bit more hardcore, because it actually very small affects your rotation. So let's get into that really quick. So potions also give your main stat buff. So if you're a Frost Mage and your intellect, you want to get the Battle Potion of Intellect. And what that is doing is it gives you a bunch of intellect, but for temporarily. So Battle Potion of Intellect increases your intellect by 900 for 25 seconds. Now let's put that in perspective. A flask increases your intellect by 238, but a potion increases your intellect by 900. Right? That's more than a factor of 3. But it only lasts for 25 seconds. So you might be wondering, like, well, how does this affect my rotation? Well, there's a thing called pre-potting, and then there's just potting. And so what that is right before you start a boss fight, right? Let's say you're about to go into raid, and let's say the raid timer comes up. Right before, the fight starts, you can potion up, and you'll get that buff, that 900 intellect buff for 25 seconds. However, there's a cooldown on the potion, right? However, if you use your potion before the fight, it will reset, and you can use it twice in a fight. So basically, the idea here is if you're in a raid environment, is that you potion right before the fight starts. You cast Icy Vein, so you're like big cooldown, and then again when you guys time warp or go berserk, when everything's flying, then you use it again to get more of that intellect. So that's how potions work. Let's go back to the notes. Then you have gems. Okay, let's skip to runes really quick. Rune is it buffs your main stat by a certain amount. The runes are something that everyone has that you can get through the game, usually by Ord Hall resources. I believe you can purchase them in the auction house. And basically it gives you increased agility, intellect, and strength. So you get all three by 60 for 1 hour, and this does not persist through death. So if you die, it goes away. So for every class, this will be the same. That's something you need to consume. So you can imagine like how many things you actually need. Okay, let's talk about gems, ring enchants, and weapon enchants. So I'm sure you have gotten an item at some point in the game where you have a socket. So if you shift right click, it'll open and you can see you can place a gem here, and a gem gives you, plus stats of a certain, or it gives you plus amount of stats of a certain stat. So for example, this ring has a gem socket in it, and I put like a gem in it that gives me plus 40 intellect. Now you might be wondering, wouldn't you want to fill all of your slots with something that's plus 40 intellect? I mean, I have many things that I can enchant. My gloves have a thing, but I have some haste in it. My pants have haste in it. My other ring has haste. And you're probably wondering, wouldn't you want it all intellect because isn't intellect the best one? Weird thing, for gems, you can only put one gem of your main stat in something. So I can only put Kraken's Eye of Intellect into one gem slot, and so I can't spread it around. So you can only have one of this main stat gem. So obviously, if you have one thing you can have one thing to put a gem in, or like a billion, you need to have at least one of this Kraken's Eye Intellect. So you don't need to do a pawn string for any of this. You always want to do Intellect because it's the most important stat. But since you can only have one of it, then you have to come down and decide, do I want the crit one or do I want the haste one? And so putting gems in is really easy. So I have like a gem right here. So let's say I wanted to socket this. I would have purchased this in the auction house. I would drag it over and I would equip it, and then I would click socket. Now I'm not going to do it now because it would destroy the gem that's in there, but that's how you socket a gem. So you shift right click on the thing that has a gem slot. It opens up, you bring it over, drag it over, and click socket gem. So the next thing would be ring enchant. So you can enchant a ring and socket it at the same time. So enchanting is just kind of putting a spell over it or whatever, which does the same thing. So here I have enchant ring, pack of haste, permanently enchant a ring to increase haste by 37. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this for you guys to show you how to do it. So you want to right click on the scroll, and then you want to bring it over to the thing you want to increase, and then you right click and you see Pact of Haste, and now it has been enchanted with haste. And so that's how you enchant rings. You can also enchant a weapon. So as you can see, I have a two-hand, and I have enchanted I have a quick navigation, which is the haste one as well. So that's what I was doing. So that's how you enchant things. Now, if you have an offhand and a one hand, right? So you don't have a two hand, you can enchant. For that certain scenario, you can only enchant the actual one-hand weapon itself. The offhand cannot be enchanted. So you can't double dip, as it were. So I think that's it for me describing what all of those do. This all increases your stats, you know, and hopefully that kind of simplified things. I know this video is jumbled and it can be really long, but that's how you do that. So I'm going to go into the auction house and I'm going to show you how to find these things, because I know that's also intimidating. So I'm going to go in here. So this is where your auction house is in Orgrimmar. I'm sure you can look this up online, and in Stormwind, you know, it's usually right next to the portals. So you go up to one of these goblins here. I know everyone's crowded around here. Click one, and this will open up the auction house tab. So I remember the first time I played this game and I opened up the auction house, I was really overwhelmed by everything here. So let's look for the food, okay? So let's say crit is your best stat, right? There's two ways to look for it. The first way, which is maybe the more simple way, is you can look through it through these tabs. So if we want food, we're going to want consumables. We're going to want food and drink, and then we hit search. And then you'd have to scroll through and try to find, you know, the food you want. Now what you can do is, since we're under the food and drink, you know, we're only going to be searching here. So I know I want Honey-Glazed Haunches, so I'll type in honey. And so the Honey-Glazed Haunches immediately show up. Now something you want to do if you want to be cost efficient here and you don't want to spend a ton of gold, as you can see at the top, there's like a single piece of Honey-Glazed Haunches. You don't want a single piece, you'll be eating all the time. And if you scroll down, you can see where there's listed stacks, and it's listed from least expensive to most expensive. So you would go, I'll buy some here. So I click the item I want, which is a Honey-Glazed Haunches stack of 20, and you don't want to bid. I mean, you can bid, so what bidding is just like eBay, where you can, you know, bid, and then you can see if you won the bid by the time the timer has run out. But usually you just buy out, right? So the top price is the bid price, which is 653 gold, but you can just buy it out for 688 gold. So we'll just click buy out. Yes, I'd like to buy it. Where does it go? It's not in my inventory. You have to open up your mail. So if you leave your auction house, right at the exit of your auction house will be like a mailbox, which is right here. So if you click on the mailbox, there's my Honey-Glazed Haunches. I'll hit open all, and bam, it's in my inventory. So we'll go through a couple more things you need to buy through the auction house so you guys can see me going through it a little bit easier. So let's say we want to get the ring enchantment, right? So you can click reset to reset the auction house. Item enchantments, I need rings. Let's search. And look, the critical strike one came up first, so that makes it really easy. And so that's how you search things. You can just search, if you look up my notepad right here, you can just type it in exactly how it's written here, and it should pop up. Now you don't enchant anything else but weapons and rings. It's the only thing that will be the item level you can do, so don't think you can enchant like your cloak or your chest. That's something you cannot do at level 120.
If you ever need any.
So I think that's everything for the video. I don't want to be too long. Like, I could talk forever about like how to use them and stuff, but if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments and I'll reply. I'm not sure how many videos more of Frostmage I'm going to do. I've been really enjoying the feedback. This is kind of my first time making YouTube videos, and the videos have been getting more views than I thought they would have, and the fact that everyone's commenting on them and like complimenting and giving their feedback and stuff has been really nice. I'm not sure what videos I'm going to make of, but you know, if there's anything else you want to see about Mage, you know, I can probably go through some other stuff, but I think that might be it for Frostmage, besides maybe some gameplay. But besides that, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you find it helpful. I'll see you next time.